G'day guys, welcome back to Supercoach Swordplay, a very, very special episode today with one of my favourite content creators. I'm sure that you do know this bloke, but he's been running his YouTube channel for a couple of years now, already got over 1,000 subscribers. Our goal is to get him to 1,500 by the start of the season this year. His Twitter handle is at Supercoach God. You know exactly who I'm talking about, Supercoach God himself. So welcome to the channel, legend. How have you been?
Yeah, good, mate. Just really trying to fix my team recently with the new Sinclair news, but no, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Oh, it's constant carnage, isn't it, buddy? It is constant carnage. It's just a work in progress. But what we're going to do today, mate, is we're going to look at Supercoach God's PODS. So we're going to be talking about 10 players, list of 10 players currently owned in under 5% of sides. Now, it was tough to put a list together, but you've done a mountain of work, a mountain of research as well, buddy. So I'm really looking forward to this myself, and hopefully you might be able to sell us a few players that are certainly points of differences this year. So how did you go about putting the list together, mate? Did you find it to be a tough job?
I did. I had a few of my own little favorites that I knew I was going to put in there, but I had to. I went on the Supercoach Gold, looked at the percentages, and decided, look, there's not much here, but there's definitely some you can definitely work with.
I like it, mate. I like it. Now, our advice always is don't select a pod just for the sake of selecting a pod. You need to be confident in this player, but we're going to give you 10 players that not necessarily we're overly keen on and locked into our sides, but 10 players that the bare minimum we think that you should have on your watch list. So we are going to start off with defense, mate. Let's get right into this. Let's crack into it. And we've got Trent Rivers. So 23 years of age, really about to come into his prime. I think we see his average from last year, 85.9, average just over 21 disposals, a CBA rate of 30%. And to me, it really looks like he came into that midfield fold once Petrarca went out of the side and started to get a lot more opportunity. A pretty good preseason from all reports. And we do think there may be potentially some more mid-time on the cards. Now, this is a pod in under 3% of sides, mate. So let's go to the next slide. Talk to us a little bit about this man, Trent Rivers, priced at 600. Geez, I'm putting his price up there, mate. Priced at 462,900.
Yeah, no, I really like the pick. Not in my side currently, but yeah, obviously the average of 85.9 last year, but once he got into that midfield by round 15, once Petrarca went down in that Queen's birthday clash, he averaged 92.9 in the last 10 games of the season. And I believe that only one game before that, he actually had any CBA time. The rest was zero. And I think it was about 20%. So really the first real look we've had of Trent Rivers in the midfield. And it was definitely positive. And then once he hit the 80+% CBA rate, he scored 131 and 143. So imagine if he's doing that every week. Obviously that won't happen, but you've got to look at the upside. And yeah, if he can cement like a spot in the midfield, while Petrarca is still out for a little while, I believe, he could really be a rising star this year. Absolutely. Possibly the best pod all year. But yeah, obviously need to see practice matches first, but yeah.
I think it's going to be a big practice match watch, isn't it, mate? Because I know that Pig's done a lot of research on this. The difference between being cog 1, cog 2 in the midfield in regards to averages compared to the third and the fourth cog as well. You hit the nail on the head there. When he had 80+% CBAs, he's gone bang, bang. It's all about opportunity for these blokes. So if we do see Rivers really upping that midfield time, particularly that CBA rate that we saw last year, we won a lot more than 30%. I'm with you, mate, particularly being able to select him as defender. That's what we're looking for, isn't it? Usually when we're selecting our defenders, our forwards, those blokes that also run through the midfield. So I think he could be a fantastic pod as well. I don't have the kahunas at this stage to be selecting him, but with the news, as you just mentioned, with Sinclair going down, could Rivers be an option? You make over around that 100, over 100K, you can then use that in another line to beef that up. So I certainly think, mate, that he's one to have on the watch list. And if he gets opportunity, that average could certainly skyrocket. So off to a pretty good start, my friend there. A very good start. We've got another defender coming up. It is Sam De Koning. Now, all the rage has been about TDK, his brother this year. Is he going to be playing with Pito? Will he have that soul ruck role? That's been all the talk, but I think his brother may have been forgotten about because his ownership is currently 2.1%. 23 years old, only an average last year of 67.2, but we do need to keep in mind he did play the majority of his time as a defender. I think you'd agree with this, mate. If we are looking at Sam De Koning this year, we really want to see him as a ruckman. Only 1.2 hit-outs to advantage on average last year, but I think this guy's got a really bright future. The Geelong ruck merry-go-round may continue with your Stanleys there. You got Conway, who's a little bit out of action at the moment, and that's probably another reason why we're looking at De Koning. But let's get to the next slide, mate. Tell us a little bit about why you think he could be a potentially relevant option for us this year.
Yeah, well, looking at probably the downside is he's averaged 60 to 68 in his whole career, in his first 3 seasons. So obviously that being a defender, but by all reports, he's looking a little bit likely, not 100%, but looking likely to be the number 1 ruck at Geelong. Apparently he smacked Reece Stanley the other day in a match sim. He could be a great option, especially at the flex. So especially with that DPP status, having a ruckman as well at the flex, it almost gives you extra scoring. You feel like, or that's what we kind of feel like. But yeah, if you could average anywhere near his brother, what a pickup it would be.
That is a really good point that you make. Just that strategy in itself with that potential DPP status, because you could get defender or ruck there. We know that lots of people are looking at that third ruck in that maybe a third premium ruck in that flex spot. But someone at De Koning's price, and we know he's not a ruck yet, and we are relying on him, obviously, to spend bulk minutes in the ruck in order to achieve that DPP. I think it's by round 6 this year. But if he does, I'll tell you what, he could be a real point of difference. And the talent's undeniable. I like the fact that he's actually been training there, because I think last year he was more thrown in there a bit experimentally here and there. But the fact that he has been training there and really working on his craft, I think that's always a real positive when players are doing that in the preseason, mate. So could be a good option in that flex or even in your defensive line. But I think it does certainly come with a little bit of risk. It's all dependent on role. If it is a defender, we're not interested. We could be interested in this man, though. This will be the third defender that we're going to touch on, and it's Josh Sinn. So we know that he was a really highly rated junior. Durability hasn't been fantastic with Sinn even in his junior days. Only the 4 games last year for an average of 53.3. Owned by 5% of coaches, so he just fits the bill here, mate. He just fits the bill right on 5%. But, with Houston gone, someone's got to pick up the slack. Some people liking the look of a Kane Farrell, who I know has had a bit of an interrupted preseason, but there's lots of other people looking at Josh Sinn, particularly at his price point, 229,500. So talk to us a little bit about Mr. Josh Sinn.
Yeah, so we know he's only played something like 8 or 12 games. It's somewhere in between there, averaging the 53.3 in the 3 games last year. Houston's gone. Someone's got to pick up the slack. And who's it going to be? Will Farrell, Jace Burgoyne? I think it might just be this man. And Fox Sports had an article the other day that came out speaking incredibly about him and what he's been doing in the preseason and how hard he's worked. He's been in my side for just over a week. So I've been pretty hot on him, even before the article came out. you can't really predict his average, as we haven't really seen him in that pure halfback role yet. But I think if he can average 80 or above, what a pick.
For those people that still have a Kitty Coleman in their side, and I think his ownership is still relatively high, I'm not too certain he's even going to be there for round 0, round 1. I hope as a line supporter that he is, but Sinn could be a wonderful downgrade option from someone like Coleman. I suppose that the tough thing for me is this buy. Again, we come to a relevant player on the round 12 buy. It's just an absolute killer because we're going to talk about someone in the midfield that we're a big fan of, the both of us, that also shares that buy. Just on Sinn as well, we've got an article here. It says, Josh Sinn's another one that's been working so hard with Houston going out. He gets that roll off half back, and I think he'll go with 2 hands. And this is according to Jason Horne-Francis. The first player who's impressed me the most this preseason is Josh Sinn, who's has injuries throughout the early part of his career. That's what we mentioned before, touched on that poor durability. He was drafted during COVID times where they didn't play a lot of football. And this is from Ollie Wines. So you've got Wines, you've got Horne-Francis really talking this bloke up. Surely that means good things. So do you see him staying in his side unless there's news that maybe he doesn't have that role?
Yeah, if he lines up on that half-back line round 1, I might just have to have a punt at it. And at the end of the day, if it fails, you just go down to a rookie. It's not the end of the world. So,
That's a good point, mate.
Have a punt.
Have a punt, says God. All right. I tell you what, I'm having more than a punt on this man. I'm putting my house on him that he's going to have a big season, and I'm going to look so silly if this pick fizzles out, mate, because I've been talking him up. You've been talking him up. The Skodfather has been talking him up. He's a shared weapon, this bloke, a shared weapon. At only 2.6% ownership, it seems like so many more people actually have him in their sides. I know a lot of people that I'm talking to have recently slotted Richards in. I think a big reason is the fact that there's major question marks on Adam Treloar now, and lots of people see him actually going up. We're talking about first, second, third, fourth cog before. I've been pretty confident for a while, and this is even before the Adam Treloar injury, that this bloke can be that second cog. He's 25 years old, the 20 games last year. He didn't quite average 100, but what we do need to keep in mind is that he did have a game where he was KO'd at halftime, BOG up until that point. That was the 3rd game in a row where he was absolutely smashing it, coming up a 160-odd against Richmond a couple of weeks before. This bloke has some enormous talent, but, mate, there's only 2.6% of coaches that agree with us. He's got 44% CBA time last year. I say that goes up, but I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on Richards because I feel like I've been talking about him so much. I want to hear someone else's opinion about him. So give us a lowdown on why you're a fan of Edward Richards.
Well, firstly, I don't actually think we should be talking about him because
keep him quiet.
We can't all win Supercoach. I mean, this is a Supercoach winning weapon, as Skodfather put it, not so lightly. I absolutely love this pick. I watched that. I saw the news on Treloar. I watched the Abs Magic video. Abs, he's a convincing man, isn't he? I mean, he really talks up his players, and he convinced me. He's gone straight in. Obviously, Adam Treloar out for 8 to 10 weeks with a calf. So much more midfield time for Richard, surely. And I think it's been announced that he will get more midfield time. He averaged 104.5 when CBAs were higher than 40%. And I think he even had games where he had 30% and he had a couple of 115s, 120s. But yeah, now with Treloar out, he's got to get more CBAs, surely. And also Libba getting older is another one. Good point. Yeah, surely he's not going to play as much. You probably don't want him to. Love Libba, but could get the odd injury or two. In my view, looking at my team, I think I've got to sacrifice owning the Bont to own Ed Richards. And
you might be keener than me. You might actually be keener. I didn't think there was anyone keener than me on Ed Richards, but you are willing to sack the Western Bulldogs captain. for this rising star. Look, mate, I'm a huge fan of him, as you know, and I really do agree with everything that you said. I know that everything I've been hearing coming out of preseason training down at the Whitten Oval, it's that they've been training to get the ball in his hands. They've been learning how to block for him because they think he's going to be that damaging. So I'm absolutely all on board the Richards train. And I think another thing we need to quickly mention as well is that if things just don't go right, and hey, there's a chance that things don't go right, there's so many options we can go down. Will Day, your Clarys, if you don't want to go there, your Cherries, your Ashcrofts. The list just keeps on going, mate. So I don't think there's much to lose with the Ed Richards pick, apart from maybe an early correction trade if things don't go to plan. But yeah, I've got really high hopes for him. And I'm probably not willing to sacrifice the Bont. I'm willing to sacrifice maybe a couple of other round 12 players. Yeah, it just goes to show how high you are on this man, buddy.
Yeah.
All right. Giordano Dawson. Mr. Dawson. Now, I know that George is currently running with the Adelaide captain in his side. He's an Adelaide man, so he knows what he's talking about, George. But 27 years of age, again, should be coming right into his prime. 22 games last year. The average for me of 102.1, hey, it's okay. It's a triple figure average. But I think for Dawson, particularly as we can see what he did in 22 and 23, 110, 116, it's certainly unders. So just on potential, I think there's some meat on the bone here. Now, we need to discuss potentially what role he'll be looking to play. I certainly expect him to get a lot of CBAs, but he can be used in a number of other roles, even on a wing, half forward. We know he spent a lot of time in his career in the defensive line, but only owned by 3% of coaches at the moment. Let's have a quick talk about Jordan Dawson. Why do you think he's someone that we should be considering in our sides?
Well, last year he started with 5 sub-tons, so he started really slowly, but then he had 4 games in a row of 125. 4 out of 6 games where he had 125 plus, and 2 of them being over 150. So after that, it just dropped straight back down. And then obviously he averaged 110 and 116 in the 2 years before that. But yeah, could it be a bounce back year? That's my big question, because I know you look at him and you go, this is one of the best players in the AFL. Like, that's how I look at him anyway. His kicking, his ability to make great decisions around the ground, gets in the right spots, and his fourth quarter performances, even last year, I thought were really good. But yeah, if he can do it all 4 quarters, I think he could be an absolute pick. And he's also Mr. Fix-It, as you alluded to. Matthew Nicks just puts him where he needs him, and Dawson's happy to do it. I'm predicting a 110 plus year for Dawson.
Oh,
but he is not currently in my side.
At 110, I'd probably take it. 110 plus, absolutely. We know he's got the talent, and I'm with you, mate. That lethal left boot, geez, he can be damaging. I think that, being that Mr. Fix-It, it's not fantastic for Supercoach, but when we've seen him play in the defensive line, even takes some kick-ins from time to time, he can still score really well there. Even playing that half-forward role, we know how damaging he is by foot as well. I think last year his disposal did let him down at times. So if he can get back to the mean, back to the norm, I think there's also some meat on the bone in that respect as well, mate. So currently not in my side, but I think he's got a decent buy and certainly upside at the price. He's a super talented player. All right, John Newcombe. Now, I had a bit of a chat about Duke Newcombe with my man SDS Supercoach, Steve from SDS. Shout out to you, brother. He was a fan of him as a player. As a Supercoach pick, he wasn't quite sure. If you look back to last year, didn't quite average triple figures, but 98.3 is okay. Just under 25 disposals, 11.5 of those contested. A pretty healthy CBA rate of 73%. But one thing we did notice when we were discussing the Hawthorn CBAs is that there's 4 players that really share that, and the range between 1 to 4 is only around 12% there. So it is very much a shared role, but there are 4 real key pillars in that CBA mix for the Hawks. Only 2.7% of coaches currently own this man. He is a player that likes to bully some of the lower ranked sides. We look at the 2 high games there, 162, 140, both against Richmond and North. Low floor, this is a bit of a concern. 6 sub-70 scores, but there certainly has to be some upside to this guy, particularly at 23 years of age. You've got some numbers, a bit of data here. Talk us through why you think Newcombe may be relevant for us, buddy.
Yeah, so obviously you talked about those scores under 70 last year, and obviously he's got a good ceiling, like 162 in a game. That's amazing. And I know he's been in the league for about 3 or 4 years now. He was a mid-season draft pick. So I think with age comes consistency. And I think you see that a lot with midfielders, especially. If he can up that floor to 80 or even 75, if he can up that floor to 75, that average just rises instantly to 105, 110. If you do think that he can rise to that next level of consistency and become a Rolls Royce instead of a Lamborghini, then I think he could be the right player for you.
I don't mind it. The point I really liked what you made there is all about his floor. Raise that floor, become more consistent. Surely that's got to put him into some more relevancy, I think. And I predict him to get definitely over triple figures this year. I just don't know if it's going to be enough for him to have one of those coveted spots in the midfield. I think he's certainly got to be a keeper, not the sort of price you're looking for as a stepping stone. So I've got someone like Richards just ahead of Newcombe at the moment. But for anyone that is toying around with a Newcombe pick, I don't mind it. I don't think it's the worst selection ever.
Yep.
All right. This is a really interesting selection. Ollie Hollands, 333,300, 21 years of age, 22 games last year. Now, his season average, and that says 2023 average. I did that much editing. I checked this 20 times, mate, didn't I, before we started this? And I've got 2023 average there on the screen. But his 2024 average was 61.9, which is certainly nothing to write home about. But there's a reason why we're excited or potentially excited about this pick. You can see it there, a winger turned half back. It's his third year in the system. And from all reports coming out of Carlton, this man is going to be one of the major beneficiaries of Nick Newman's injury. And I have heard as well that even before Newman went down, they were pegging him for this role itself as an attacking half-backer. So you got a few notes here. Tell us why we should be looking at Ollie Hollands, mate.
So last year, obviously, played a bit of that wing, half forward role, and averaged 62. But you don't look at that average. Forget that average. Just wipe it out of your brain because he's going to a completely different role now. He's going to half back, and Newman's obviously, as you said, he's done his ACL, which isn't good for Carlton for sure, but it's definitely good for Ollie Hollands' Supercoach role. I'll tell you that much. The only area I'm a bit aware of is that Sam Doherty should be coming back. That half back line, he could take that back. And because we know how good Sam Doherty is on a half back line.
Absolutely.
He was I think he was D1 for 2 years straight. So it's a really hard read on Hollands. We don't really know how efficient he is out of that half back line, how effective he is. And so we really do need to watch these practice games coming up. And he is definitely one that I really want to watch heavily because I haven't had him in my side yet. But I know George, he's very, very hot on him. Very, very hot on him.
Oh, we are going to get to another man that George is very hot on right at the end of this potty, mate. But yeah, I'm finding this a tough one to read. Now, luckily, Janath and the boys, I think it's going to be this Tuesday or Wednesday night, are going to be recording the Carlton team preview. I know because I've done the slides for it. I think there are about 20 slides. The amount of players they're going to cover is going to be nuts. But I know that Ollie Hollands is going to be one of the major discussion points during that podcast. So we can certainly look forward to that, mate. And hopefully both of us as non-Blue supporters can get a little bit more info from that. But absolutely with you, mate, on the watch list 100%. There's just a bit of competition, isn't there? You've got Peatling at a very, very similar price. Then you go up a little bit to your Oliver, your Chera types. But at 333,300 could be one of the bargains of the year if everything works out, if he manages to maintain that halfback role that we're expecting from him, mate. All right, let's get into the big boys. Now, we're only going to talk about one ruck during this podcast, and I've talked about him a little bit so far in the preseason with Swizz and the Squadfather. And in good news, the Squadfather is a big fan of Nank the Tank. 30 years old, 21 games last year, 110.2. So a really, really healthy average there. Hit outs 32.5 on average. Only 1.2% of coaches are currently running with this man. But one thing I really like is his scoring patterns. So we see that his scoring is on an upwards trend since 2019, 74, 82, 94, 97, 104, and 110. So based off that, even in the last 4 years, he's gone up 3, then took a really nice jump by 7, then another 6. If he can put even 4 to 5 points on that 110, that puts him at 115 and makes him a really, really relevant option. I like his opening fixture. So, mate, tell us why you think we should be at least considering Big Nank the Tank.
Yeah, well, obviously you've got your really highly owned ruckman in your Sherrys, your TDKs, your Gorns, your Englishes, and your Flynns, mainly at the flex. But yeah, I haven't seen one team with Nank the Tank in it. And I was talking to Supercoach Masters Geordie last night, actually, and he was quite hot on him, actually. He was considering him. And I'd never actually thought about it. I'd never thought about the pick of Toby Nankervis. And then, I don't know, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. He's an absolute gun ruckman who started out as a real battler, and he's made his way up and up the ranks. He does not have the round 12 bye. Now, Sherry, TDK, and English, 3 of the 4 premium ruckmen that most people are looking at, all have that round 12 bye. And yeah, I don't know. It's if Nank's your bye cover in the rucks, I wouldn't be complaining at all. He is 30 years old, which is a negative for most positions. You would have generally thought, maybe not in recent times, but with ruckman, I feel like they peak at around the 30-year-old mark. You saw with
they take more time. Yeah,
you're right. They take more time.
Yeah,
that and key forwards. Yeah, I think the Nank at 30 years old, I think he could go even better than he did last year with his 110. It doesn't make me want to pick the Nank, though. There's nothing that's screaming to me, pick the Nank. There is upside. I see upside. Do I see much upside? No, because of that big price of 600K. He's priced correctly. And you could probably argue that TDK is not priced correctly. Gorns might be potentially overs, some people think.
That's fair, mate. Yeah, for sure.
Sherry's probably priced correctly, and English is probably unders for what he can do, definitely. But Nank just seems to be at the right price. Yeah, I don't think there's too much upside. Can he average 115? That's my question, because it's probably what I'll need him to go to compete with those other big ruckmen in the league. And I'm not too positive about that. So, but could he be a safer option? That's like, could he be safer than, I know he's only 1% owned and it's a pod, but it's one of the rare cases where I could say it's a safe pod.
It's an interesting call that you make there, because if you look at, even your TDKs, there's that looming pedo factor that's always going to be there. Marshall, a lot of talk about him spending time forward. Shrek's had a really interrupted preseason. Some may say that Gorn is just a little bit too old now, I think 33 years of age. So he comes with a good buy. And I'm actually with you. People may think we're a little bit crazy for saying it, but I think he is a relatively safe option. And I think he will go at around his price. So if you're happy enough just to lock him in, get that hopefully 110 average, and fingers crossed even a little bit more if you can, then I don't think that's the worst thing in the world to be quite honest. There's no one else that's going to be stealing ruck time like someone may with a TDK pick. So I'll tell you what, mate, like the fact that you've brought his name to the table, and you have a couple of other people that I know actually with you here as well. So who knows? By the time we get to round one, we may see him at above 5%. But yeah, very interesting selection there, buddy. We've got two more players that we're going to look at, and they are both forwards. A really interesting selection here with Sam Darcy. I think I've got this round the wrong way, mate. So we'll go with this one first. So 21 years of age, 20 games last year, obviously got rubbed out for a little while, 79.3. So I think that's really impressive, particularly for a young bloke, someone that's played a major key forward role. We can see that this CBA percentage was 16%. So did play a bit of that ruck chop out role, or ruck relief role is probably a better term. I think he could be a generational player. He has that much talent. And just imagine when he puts some more bulk on his frame, when he puts his arms up at his highest reach, at his highest point, he's almost unstoppable for me. So 4% of coaches are currently on him, which I was surprised with. I hadn't considered him. So tell us why you're currently considering him. 427,000, not necessarily in your side, but considering him as someone just to check on the watch list.
Definitely not in my side yet. Apart from Tom Lynch this year being 180k, he could be one of the only exceptions to the rule where you actually pick a key forward in your starting team. That's not a rookie, mind you. In his rookie year last year, he obviously averaged 79 points as a forward who would sometimes go in the ruck, not much, as you alluded to the 16% CBAs. But if this guy is what we think he will be, which is a very, very dominant forward and force, and if he just ups that level into 2025, the people that start him could have a massive leg up on the comp, and that is no joke. I could see a world where he's averaging 100 and above, maybe. I could also see him averaging 75, which is below his rookie season. Very risky. Very, very risky.
It is a tough. I haven't considered him, mate. I really haven't considered him. But as you mentioned, the reward could be massive there. I wonder what that ruck time's going to be, or that ruck split's going to be. You know, with Jamara going down, do they just say, no, mate, you're just going to stay permanently forward, and maybe someone like a Ryan Gardner chops out? I'm really not too sure. But the talent is absolutely undeniable. And I'm with you. I think in the future, this guy could be an absolute Supercoach staple, even as a key forward. You know, I remember back in the day, Jonathan Brown, Nick Riewoldt were really good selections. They were just that dominant. I think that Darcy could be in that same mold as a key forward. But hey, if we see him even get to that 30% ruck time, I think the sky is the absolute limit, mate. So was not on my radar. Putting him on the watch list now, though, buddy.
Yeah, I reckon we could see the next player to kick 100 goals in a season right here. I reckon this is it. I reckon this could be the guy. If anyone.
That. Absolutely bookmark that. I agree with you. I don't reckon that is a silly call whatsoever. We're going to revisit this video. I'm going to say in maybe 3 years, I'll give him. I reckon you could be absolutely on the money with this, mate, because, yeah, generational player, in my opinion. And the last bloke we're going to talk about here, mate, is another one of George's boys. Now, George is on this fella very, very early on. And I thought to myself, George, have you lost your mind? Ryan Maric, what is going on here, bloke? But this shows why he's one of the best minds in the game, because coaches like me now are scrambling towards this pick, going, let's get him in the side. I'm a bit of a fan after what I've heard in the preseason, mate. So 223,800 mid forward, really, really handy DPP status. All the rage is about his new role going into 2025. So can you tell us a little bit about that role and why you think he could be very relevant to our sides?
Yeah. So just a disclaimer, I don't reckon I can remember Ryan Maric having one disposal in a game. I cannot remember touching the football. I do not know. I looked him up today and saw his face. I'm like, who? But look, there is a case to be made here, and it seems like this guy is going to be playing the Hearn role. And we've seen in the past that the Hearn role is very Supercoach friendly. And at 223k, could mean money. But and even so, he's getting taught how to play the Hearn role by Hearn. So
you can't beat that.
you can't beat that. And he's 193 centimeters, so fits that profile perfectly. In the past, obviously, he's played forward, as is shown in his Supercoach description. But yeah, if he can get anywhere near a Hearn-like average, which I don't think he won't in his first year playing the role, but he could be an absolute steal. And at the price, if he could average, I don't know, 80, that could be amazing for owners. But we do need to watch a practice match or two, because yeah, I can't pick this guy without seeing the proof in the pudding.
Absolutely, we need to see the role. We need to see the role. But if he's got it, let's be honest, you'd expect to see a fair bit of the ball down in West Coast's back line. I like the pick. I really like the pick, and it's just about role. I remember listening to an interview recently. I forget where it was. So I'd love to give you the source. I just completely forget. Got baby brain at the moment. But he did mention that at the end of his exit meeting, the end of last year, there was a little bit of talk or mention, hey, what do you think about the potential to go down back and make that switch? He was all for it. They like what they see. He's really enjoying his football. And I think it could be a fantastic cash cow / stepping stone for us this year. And that DPP just, is an extra bonus for us, mate. So I'll tell you what, there are 10 of Supercoach God's pods under 5% owned. A brilliant discussion, mate. A lot of food for thought. And I'm expecting, after this video goes public, that after listening to your great advice, that those ownership percentages are going to steadily rise up the ladder, mate. So, Legend, thank you so much for joining me, mate. It's been too long since being on the channel, but tell us, mate, what have you got coming up? I know that you're someone that does a fair bit of content during the preseason, talks about what happens during those games, but anything major apart from that that's coming up on the channel soon, mate?
Yeah, so I'm going to be looking at the players I'm going to be watching in the preseason, and I'll put a little list together and talk about those players. A lot of these players will probably be in there, so you can just skip those players if you've already seen this video. I've also probably got maybe 2 more team reveals left before season's end. I might try and fit in a Collingwood video, because I love the Pies. I tell all my mates I'm the biggest Pies fan. I'm the biggest Pendles fan. So I might get a Pies video in there, but apart from that, just keep uploading on every other day.
I like it, mate. I like it. A very, very busy schedule. So as I mentioned in the intro, guys, if you haven't already subscribed to this great man's channel, please head over to Supercoach God, show him some love, hit that notification bell, and we really want to get him to at least 1,500 by the start of round 1. So again, Legend, thank you very much for joining me. Hopefully I may get an invite onto your channel very, very soon. I'd enjoy that very much. And until next time, guys, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.